We've entered the year 2026, a milestone for years in general, considering this is the biggest one since 2025. Of course, a new year also means I'm once again questioning my life choices, still playing super predatory gacha games that are trying to bankrupt me and make my editor go hungry. But considering the last one of these videos I did got like 500,000 views, can you really blame me for bringing it up again a year later? Anime-style games, and I say that really loosely, in general are in a weird state right now where they're still kind of looked at as cringe by like anyone who's normal. And that even happens with like Game Award trailers. Speaking of the Game Awards, even winning player's voice isn't enough for John middle name Gun and Ball last name Gamer to not just assume that the guys who made the gacha game that won just jingled in-game currency in front of the fan base's faces like keys to get them all to vote for it to win. The reality is that yes, some people really do want free polls. I mean, free-to-plays have to take any wins they can get in this genre, but also the fan bases of these games are incredibly passionate. They're willing to jump into those trenches and fight on the front lines against the fan bases of Dispatch, Hollow Knight Silksong, and even the Golden Child Expedition 33 just for a chance at being recognized in the mainstream. But that begs the question, what if Mr. John Gun and Ball did give a gacha game a try? Would Wuthering Waves be the best gacha to jump into right now? And is Wuthering Waves worth playing in 2026? Understand that Wuthering Waves right at this moment is truly in the best state it's ever been, and Kuro Games shows once again that with the 3.0 version, they are committed to blowing themselves. Wait, that's not right. Blowing the audience. They are committed to blowing the audience out of the water with each new update that comes out. But brand new players do still have to play through the first versions of the game, the 1.0 series, which I'm gonna be honest, guys, might as well be a completely different game. Sure, it's not as bad as it was on launch, buggy, unoptimized, yada yada yada. I've said this a million times before, but the actual story itself and the presentation of that story remains entirely unchanged. It's a better presentation than the average Pokemon cutscene, but the bar is on the floor. And that's all separate from the look and feel of the game at the time, which let's just say took maybe too much inspiration from other games. I'll keep it honest, the 1.0 story is pretty boring and it's kind of just nonsense exposition. Every character talks so slow and you have to listen to Yang Yang form her first thought in every single cutscene.
Are you all right? Do you feel any discomfort?
Which is why Kuro Games is so excited that once you play for like 3 hours, you can just skip everything and head straight to Hyroy. While it's nice to have the option to skip forward past 1.0, especially if this is a repeat playthrough, the skip as it is now takes you straight to Hyroy, which is a disservice all its own considering that they're encouraging you to skip some later 1.0 content that's pretty good, and the really, really good 2.0 content. Yeah, you can skip to 2.0 instead, and unfortunately still miss out on Shorekeeper's Quest, but the average new player doesn't really know that, and instead, Kuro Games heavily promotes skipping straight to Hyroy the moment you step foot in Jinzo. To a newcomer from single-player story games, it's like if you played the first 30 minutes of Final Fantasy VII Remake and the developers stopped you in your tracks and were like, hey man, you could totally play like 30 hours of this game, or you could just get the cliff notes in this sick 5-minute slideshow we made. Also, now you're fighting Sephiroth. Encouraging new players to skip 2.0 content is such a shame too, because it was during these updates that Kuro Games really elevated the feel and presentation of Wuthering Waves into something all its own. They introduced an incredibly interesting city full of people that gave the vibes of Fortuna from Devil May Cry 4 if it was colorful, everyone ate pasta, and all the roads were gondola rides instead. Regardless, the music is incredible, the plot is engaging, the characters are written well and show up enough on a regular basis to be worth investing your feelings into. There's a huge amount of quality of life improvements, you could literally fly, entirely change the way you traverse the open world. It's kind of incredible. This is one of the things that myself and others praise Wuthering Waves for most. While a lot of live service games just deliver what they must every single patch, Wuthering Waves delivers an improved experience every single patch. And it's not just things that nobody asked for. Every new patch adds new quality of life updates, better story presentation, improvements on character kits to feel even more unique and different from previous ones, and though not all updates add a new zone, when they do, it's awesome. And on top of adding things that people ask for, they also add things like this. Mobile game, by the way. You can really see the way Kuro Games has improved on their own presentation just comparing early 2.0 content to 2.8. The cutscenes, characterization, pacing, story itself, it truly is weird, in a good way, to watch the game actively increase in quality the further you get into it. At the beginning, cutscenes are standard fare, not much different from 1.0, but then suddenly, towards the end of 2.0, cutscenes have black bars and, dare I say, some actual cinematography. All of this, like I said earlier, carries over directly into 3.0, Hyroy, a brand new lush and vibrant futuristic academy introduced through an incredibly engaging intro sequence where we ride a sick-ass motorcycle away from the sandworm from Dune, and on top of that, you get your own motorcycle later on. The new hub world is really detailed and looks very alive. There are just so many people hustling and bustling everywhere, and I'd love to say that Kuro Games has finally dropped a new location that is properly optimized, but we both see the footage on screen, and we know that 3 updates from now, it'll be mostly fixed, probably. The line is really starting to blur between what's really important pre-rendered cutscene and what's just the standard in-engine stuff that fills up a majority of your time spent listening to dialogue, and it goes such a long way compared to what's on offer in 1.0. I find myself skipping through so much less dialogue because the pacing has gotten that much better and people have actually interesting things to say. It's no longer a character saying they'll do something, having another character react to that, and then just repeating that same dialogue 4 times over, but they switch the wording around a little bit. It makes me like these newer characters so much more, even though they're spending less time with me. I mean, pretty much immediately, we get to start forming connections with Lene and Luke, before eventually dropping them at the end of the act and moving on to the shiny new characters in the next act. And of course, the combat is about as good as ever, if not even better, except for when these bosses just fly away from me all the time. Like, spiritually, this is the same energy as using a riot shield in Modern Warfare 2 or armor lock in Halo Reach. Can you just get the fuck? The elephant in the room is the new toon break mechanic, which in the most basic terms allows pretty much every team to do more damage and look even cooler with a sick quick time event that breaks up the usual combat flow of click long, click Q, E2, and so on. The downside of this new mechanic is that all of the new units introduced in Hyroy get a lot more value than the older ones, but when I asked the new player in the room how he felt about toon break as a mechanic, he responded with, and I quote, "What the hell is even that? I press F when it shows up on my screen during combat, and my character does a cool move. Just read the script, dude." Thankfully, to fix this, there is a new endgame mode that buffs all of the older units while you're playing it, so it's not all that bad, especially if you consider the fact that the endgame in Wuthering Waves isn't having its HP inflated to shit every single patch. So even the oldest units in the game can clear the hardest fights. It's very rare for characters to be phased down unless they maybe just weren't that good to begin with. It's one of those things that makes Wuthering Waves pretty friendly for players who want to stay free to play, which is one of the major advantages that this game has over a lot of modern AAA titles and live service games. This has all been very positive, and that just isn't allowed in 2026, so let's talk about some stuff that I don't like. I get that this is a gacha game ultimately, and with that comes reasonable expectations about what each new story is going to be like. Each new story needs to introduce a new character, which is why each act is kind of just introducing a new 5-star character to be the complete focus of our main character. And I personally feel like if Kuro Games listens to anything moving forward, I really hope they listen to the feedback that not everything has to revolve around our main player character. Obviously, I do want them to be the main character, but I think it would be cool if we got to focus on some of the upcoming characters that weren't on the banner, so when they came around to the banner, everything would make a lot more sense and feel a lot more cohesive. That's one of the things they did exceptionally well in 2.0 with Cardathea, where they brought her in 2.0, had lore bits about her between, and in 2.2 she got her official quest, and she was even relevant all the way through 2.4. Well, to be honest, actually, she was relevant throughout all of 2.x, but that's what made her such a likable character. Also, I kind of wish Kuro wouldn't just treat characters like they fucking died if they're not on the banner. That would be nice. Look, you can feel however you want about Chisa and her story. I don't care about all that drama. I just feel like the resolution to Chisa reuniting with her family being resolved in optional dialogue shoved at the beginning of section of 3.0 is genuinely kind of unacceptable. I only hope towards future 3.0 updates that characters are allowed to stick around a bit longer than one act, and also that characters start being able to interact with each other instead of every quest being a one-on-one date with the main character. Now, one thing that Wuwa has done well in 2026 and in all of the past versions for 2.x is they've added awesome quality of life additions. Free-to-play players have been truly blessed with brand new standard banner weapons, so that way they're able to keep up with the newer characters that come out without having to spend a bunch of money. The newer traversal methods like the motorcycle and Lene's skates feel great and make Hyroy feel like even more of its own thing instead of carrying over the exact same mechanics from 2.0. You can also autopilot while riding around, playing music in-game. There's some brand new UI enhancements like auto-collect for echoes, an ascension planner, and a better echo upgrade screen. The They also added a chat for all the characters in the game to keep up with you as you go along with your adventures. And just in case you were curious, they send you the most lonely happy birthday message ever. Good lord.
I can already tell you have nothing planned, so will you let me have you all to myself?
A lot of this is pretty much normal gacha game behavior. While Wuthering Waves stands out as a pretty exceptional gacha game for what it's worth, it still is a gacha. That doesn't mean it's not fun or that you can't enjoy it, but it does mean that though there is a pretty compelling story, amazing characters, a huge world, it still has limiters to it that you might not be used to if you haven't played gacha games before. Now, I've had a lot of very specific feedback in this video, but I think it's finally time we talk about whether or not Wuwa is worth playing in 2026. And it is my humble opinion that if you have never played a gacha game before, I don't recommend you start them now. There are infinitely better uses of your time. If you feel you absolutely have to play a gacha game for the first time ever, or if you're going to get into anime games and there's just not enough good live service options for you, Wuthering Waves in its current state is by no means a bad option, and actually I think it's pretty dang good. But I will warn you, the intro sequence is not that welcoming. All of Wuthering Waves' most unpolished content is front-loaded onto new players in the first 2 to 3 hours of the game that can really make or break someone's decision to stick with or drop it. And from the POV of someone who might not play gacha games, the menu is pretty cluttered, and the tutorials can be confusing to non-gacha players as well. If you are used to gacha games and you understand just what you're getting into, Wuthering Waves is easily one of the best games you could pick up right now. The Hyroy is such a beautiful location, and the amount of NPCs around makes it feel so alive. But on top of it, you get in-game and jump straight into 2.0 content. Your story experience is back-to-back bangers all the way up to where we are currently with 3.0. You can pull on standard weapon banners to get any of the new weapons that do have crit main stats. Toon Break will let you do a lot more damage from the get-go no matter what characters you have. The UI experience is better all around than it used to be, and they even give you a motorcycle, man. What else could you really ask for? With version 3.1 just around the corner and featuring some very exciting units, I firmly believe that this is the best time to start Wuthering Waves if you haven't already. There's hundreds of hours of free content to explore, like the open world, compelling story quests, and tons of brand new content in version 3.1. It's probably not very common for someone to look at Amieth and go, wow, I really do not want to play that game. And I have a sneaking suspicion that her story is going to be one of the most exciting ones told in Wuthering Waves. But what do I know? I've only been keeping up with this game since the first open beta. It is of my humble opinion that Kuro Games listens and raises the bar with every single update, and it's exciting to see because come the end of 3.0, it'll be really interesting to look back and see how much improvement is really left to be done, or if we've already reached the level of quality that'll be Wuthering Waves' identity moving forward. Despite the new player experience not being all that great, I do think it is worth putting in the time to enjoy it. But yeah, Kuro, can we upgrade 1.0? Can we just like make that better, please? Thank you.